Welcome everyone to the Settle In live session. My name is Ajmal and I'm a digital community liaison with Settle In. We will be covering immigration options and resources today. I have with me today Catherine Picker, who is an immigration program officer and has been working with refugees and immigrants, including those arriving from Afghanistan for many years. Please remember, when commenting during this live session, not to share any personal or confidential information as we are public facing. Many of you have been asking questions about immigration options, green cards, and what the laws are for your legal status here in the US. Before we get started, let me say we are not able to answer questions about the specific cases, as that would be considered offering legal advice, which we are not authorized to do. Today, we will be sharing general information for you to consider and resources for you to review. Ms. Picker, thank you for being with us today to talk about this important topic. Let's start with the basic question. What is parole?
Thank you, Ajmal. Most people who were evacuated from Afghanistan were permitted to enter the United States through a legal process called parole, which can be granted by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security for urgent humanitarian reasons or significant public benefit to a person who is not otherwise admissible to the United States. Parole is temporary and does not lead to permanent immigration status or a green card. Parolees who wish to seek permanent resident status in the United States must qualify through one of several pathways.
Thank you for that overview. Sometimes parole is referred to as special immigrant parole, humanitarian parole, or something else. What is the difference?
All parole is legally the same, but some people with so-called SQ or special immigrant parole were further along in the special immigrant visa application process and may be able to apply for their green card right away, while others with humanitarian parole may need to complete other steps or identify a different pathway before they may be able to apply for permanent resident status. All parolees should have been issued an arrival record, or Form I-94, which is available online from the United States Customs and Border Protection, or CBP. Parolees' I-94s may indicate DT or OAR for the class of admission, but special immigrant parolees should also have received a paper printout of their I-94 that is stamped SI or SQ parole.
Thank you for that. We know that many of those who follow this Facebook Settle In page have been granted parole. Could you share with us some of the requirements for individuals who have parole status?
Sure. There are several requirements that the United States government has for those with parole. These include immunizations for the measles, mumps, and rubella, polio, and COVID, unless you have proof of prior vaccination. Also, tuberculosis testing, and you are required to notify the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service, or USCIS, of any change of address within 10 days of moving. Vaccines are generally provided at the safe havens upon arrival. However, if you departed the base before you received your vaccines, you must obtain them and you must report compliance with the vaccine requirement through the USCIS website. In addition, you will be responsible for updating your address immediately each time you move.
These requirements are good to know. How about the benefits of parole? What is offered through this?
Sure. Those who have been granted parole have this status for 2 years. They are eligible for the Afghan Placement and Assistance Program services, and they can apply for work authorization in order to find a job here in the United States. The time that a parolee is authorized to work will be the same as the amount of time that they have parole.
Great. We have heard from many individuals about the importance of finding work so they can support their family. Let's talk a little bit about US laws in humanitarian parole status. Can you share a bit with us about that?
Sure. It's important to follow all of the conditions associated with your parole status, including informing USCIS of any address change. Failure to meet the conditions of parole status can lead to termination of parole and detention and possible removal from the United States. It's also important to obey all United States laws, as you can be punished if you break the law, even if you didn't know about the law you broke. In some severe cases, the penalty for breaking the law can result in deportation.
Thank you for sharing that. We understand that parole allows individuals to be in the US for 2 years as long as the requirements are met and no US laws are broken. Let's move on to what future options are available to those Afghan evacuees who have been granted parole. Can you give us a sense of what the main immigration options are?
Sure. Every person with parole needs to be screened by a person who is authorized to practice immigration law in the United States in order to see what specific options they have for obtaining status in the United States. As each family is different, the options will be different for everyone. Some of the options may include special immigrant status, family-based immigrant status, derivative refugee or asylum status, or asylum.
We know there are big differences between special immigrant status and parole. Can you tell us how someone with parole could apply for the SIV program?
Sure. Some parolees, prior to their evacuation from Afghanistan, will have already begun or may be in the final stages of applying for a special immigrant visa or SIV. Some parolees who have not already started the SIV application may be identified as SIV or special immigrant eligible in a legal screening, and they may begin the process to apply after their arrival in the United States. The special immigrant visa application process has many steps and can take many months or even years. There is no guarantee that anyone will qualify, but it is an option to discuss with a legal service provider.
Great. Thanks for clarification. How about family based immigrant status or derivative refugee or asylee status? What does that refer to?
Some parolees will have a close family member who is a U.S. citizen or a lawful permanent resident and who may have filed or who qualifies to file a family-based immigrant visa petition on their behalf. Some may also have a spouse or a parent who is a principal refugee or asylee who may have filed or who qualifies to file a refugee asylee relative petition on their behalf.
That's good to know for those who have close family members here in the US already. You also mentioned asylum. Some may be familiar with the word, but can you explain a bit more what that means?
Of course, to qualify for asylum in the United States, an applicant must prove that they meet the legal definition of a refugee. That is, that they cannot return to Afghanistan on account of past persecution or a fear of future persecution on account of their race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group, and that they are not subject to any bars to asylum. Asylum applications must be filed within 1 year of arrival to the United States, or for those with parole, before their period of parole expires.
Thank you for this information. I know many of our audience are now wondering if they do not have special immigrant status, or family based immigrant status, or asylum. By the time their parole expires, what can they do?
Sure. Parolees who have applied for special immigrant status or family-based status and those with pending asylum applications, as well as those who have not yet applied for any permanent status, are strongly encouraged to apply for re-parole at least 6 months before their period of parole expires in order to ensure that they do not fall into unlawful presence in the United States and to ensure that there is no gap in their ability to work legally in the United States. Being in unlawful presence may prevent someone from qualifying for various forms of immigration relief in the future.
Thanks, Catherine. A lot of immigration information can feel overwhelming and very detailed. Since Settle-In is unable to provide individual legal advice, where would you recommend our audience to go for legal advice?
For those who are working with a resettlement agency, you can check with them first. Some resettlement agencies may have in-house immigration services, while other resettlement agencies may have community connections or resources that they can share. Outside of the resettlement agency, there are two good resources to start with. The first one is Human Rights First's Project Afghan Legal Assistance, or PALA. You can go to their website to fill out an intake form online. This project is working hard to provide legal services for Afghans, though you will need to be patient as there are many, many Afghans requesting support right now. Another option to finding a legal service provider is this online directory of legal service providers. You will need to insert your zip code to see a list of providers in your area.
And what we expect when we call a legal service provider for the directory.
Every legal service provider is different. However, you can expect that they will either say that they can see you or that they currently have too many clients. At this point, you will need to try to call a different provider. You can also expect that some will ask for a fee for their legal services, while others may first ask to see your income. Finally, some may be able to speak in Dari or Pashto, but others will not have those languages readily available. So it can take some time and patience to find the right legal service provider for your needs.
I know that there are a lot of dishonest people in the US that lie and claim they are legal service providers, but are not. How can we ensure who we are talking to are truthful?
Thanks for that question. Any of the providers listed on this directory will be valid legal service providers. However, some online service providers are likely to be fraudulent. They will ask for a high service fee and will not provide you with any actual legal services. Please do take care to only seek out actual legal service providers.
Thank you for that. A few safety tips to protect yourself against fraudulent service providers are:
do not give out your personal information, such as a credit card number or bank account information, to anyone over the telephone. Do not send money if a caller tells you to wire money or pay with a prepaid debit card. Do not give in to pressure to make an immediate decision to use their services. And do look up your attorney in your state's bar directory. Every U.S. state has a separate state bar website. In California, for example, you can search at this website for the attorney's name to confirm that they are a licensed legal service provider.
Thank you, Ms. Becker, for being with us today to share immigration information about SIV in humanitarian parole. Let's take a moment to review some of the major points.
Sure. Parole is temporary and does not lead to permanent immigration status or a green card. Those who have been granted parole have this status for 2 years. Some of the options may include special immigrant status, family-based immigrant status, or derivative refugee asylee status or asylum. Every person with parole needs to be screened by a person who is authorized to practice immigration law in the United States to see what specific options they have for obtaining status in the United States. Check with your resettlement agency or one of the online resources in order to meet with a legal service provider. Follow safety guidelines to avoid fraudulent legal services.
We appreciate all of your questions and hope we were able to offer you some new information. We will be offering more live sessions, so please do watch for our future posts. For any questions not answered today, you may send us a private message and one of our team will get back to you as soon as they can. Thank you, Ms. Spicker, for joining with us today. We appreciate all of your helpful information.
You're welcome. Thank you.